Hi, welcome to this month's Elders Weather Update. In today's video, we'll be taking a look at widespread rain and thunderstorms that are returning to Australia this week, and in some ways, this wet and stormy weather defies the outlook that was predicted under El Nino and a positive Indian Ocean dipole. What's causing this rain and thunderstorm outbreak is the influence of a strong positive southern annular mode. So let's take a look at what that means and why this has defied the dry outlook for parts of Australia. We've seen a lot of thunderstorm activity developing across Australia this week. More than 1.2 million lightning strikes were recorded above New South Wales and Queensland just during the first weekend of November. By Wednesday, storms were stretching over part of every state and territory, and by the end of this week we're likely to see more than 5 million lightning strikes across Australia. But what's causing this outbreak of wet and stormy weather? One of the big drivers is something called the southern annular mode. The southern annular mode refers to the north-south movement of the westerly wind belt that flows between Australia and Antarctica. When a positive southern annular mode is occurring, those westerly winds are located further south than usual for that time of year, and when a negative southern annular mode is occurring, those westerly winds are located further north than usual for that time of year. In spring and summer, when we have a positive southern annular mode and those westerlies move to the south, we typically get more onshore easterly winds carrying moisture over eastern and southeastern Australia, which increases rainfall. By contrast, when we see negative southern annular mode phases occurring in spring and summer, we typically have more westerly winds, which brings drier than usual weather to large areas of eastern and southeastern Australia. We are currently experiencing a positive southern annular mode phase that started in late October and is expected to last until around the middle of November before returning back to a neutral state in the second half of the month. This means that we are likely to continue to see more rain and thunderstorm activity over Australia until about the middle of November before conditions possibly trend back to more normal levels for this time of year. But of course we have some other climate drivers at play that will be influencing Australia's weather as we head into the second half of the month and into December as well. One of the big ones is El Nino. So what is happening with El Nino and why are we seeing all these rain and thunderstorms occurring at the moment? One important thing to point out is there is a difference between the climate drivers that affect Australia in terms of their scale. You can think of the southern annular mode like a sprinter. It typically has impacts that last days to weeks, whereas El Nino and other climate drivers like the positive Indian Ocean dipole are more like marathon runners. They last for months to seasons. So during an El Nino period, you can have these wet, short phases being caused by things like the southern annular mode, but El Nino on a much longer time scale will always win out. We can see the impact of the southern annular mode quite clearly on these two maps. Having a look at the last 3 months when we were in a predominantly negative phase of the southern annular mode and also El Nino and a positive Indian Ocean dipole, we had abnormally dry weather over much of Australia and serious to severe rainfall deficiencies developed between August and October over parts of central and eastern Australia, and some parts of central and eastern Australia even had their driest August to October on record. Now that we've moved into a positive phase of the southern annular mode, we can see that rainfall has returned to some northern, central and eastern parts of the country as shown on the map on the right hand side, which is showing accumulated rainfall during the first 9 days of November. Now this is not enough rain to make up for those longer term deficiencies, but it does show that even when we've got El Nino in place and a positive Indian Ocean dipole occurring, we can still have these periods of wet weather when things like the southern annular mode move into a positive phase and we get more moisture flowing over Australia, which can fuel rain and thunderstorms. So in summary, a positive southern annular mode is currently increasing rain and thunderstorm activity over Australia, and this is affecting large areas of the country that have had severe rainfall deficiencies in recent months. However, this rain is not enough to completely eradicate the longer term rainfall deficiencies that are being caused by El Nino and a positive Indian Ocean dipole, but it does show that wet weather can still happen during otherwise dry seasons in Australia.